I was in a tabletop role-playing game that Ty was running, and he had done all of the world building and had all of this. Anytime you asked him a question, he knew the answer. There were a lot of other very successful and popular writers who were in that game, and I'm the only one who said, "Ooh, we should write a book." So that's how I win.
Yeah, I mean, like, George R. R. Martin was one of the players in my game. So.
And did he collaborate with Ty?
So
no.
when do you guys meet up?
It's not like we don't hang out with George, but his experience of Game of Thrones and our experience of The Expanse aren't comparable. What he was doing and what we're doing, just on a day-to-day basis, don't look the same. Part of moving this into a television show is that we're not actually retelling book and then a book and then a book and then a book and then a book. We're retelling a story that we're doing over 9 books in a different medium. But we don't feel obligated to have everybody go, "Oh, there was the end of the book, and now we, start something new." It's all supposed to be very organically one story.
One of the greatest things we heard from people season 1 is we felt like we had been really faithful to the book, and we have been, and we also haven't been. But the fact that it feels that way was really important to us. Ty and Daniel, we had them as part of a writer's room, so we could, have them really, we could test things out with them there and say, does this break the world you created? Does it violate anything or whatever? One of our writers worked for a circus, and she said, like, when you go to the town, like you'd be in a traveling circus, and you work with people, you think you know them, then a crisis happens, or you stop in a town and take a few days, and you realize you don't know anybody, you don't know anything about them, you don't know who they really are. And so we wanted to approach the crew as we're going to get to know them as they get to know each other. Otherwise, I feel like we missed the most interesting part of their relationship, and the books were kind of past that already, so we just backed it up.
And then in season 2 now, the character of Bobby Draper, the Martian, will start from the very first episode, even though the events that start her off in the second book occur later in the season. So we'll get to see more of her sort of pre those events. And that sort of thing is just going to keep happening.
Nobody feel like we changed anything, but we have, I think, dove in deeper to what the opportunity was in the book.
There are times when we are surprised by an interaction that, 2 characters who never talked in the book run into each other on the screen. It's like, oh no, that is interesting.
Even still, you don't know who these people are, especially someone like Amos. You don't really understand what broke him and what made him the way he is.
The one I was expecting to be the most difficult to do on the screen was Amos.
He was fantastic.
Then we got Wes.
Wes, and he just did it. I was like, okay, so that worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I did read the books, and he felt different to me in the books, and even in the initial pilot script, than he did in the churn. That's part of The Expanse. It's my favorite book of the Expanse series. And really goes into how he was brought up. He looks to Naomi to make decisions for him and choices for him. Well, in this season, he's forced to make choices for himself. In the second season, you really get a sense underneath of who he really is. And I think it's going to be in a way that people aren't going to expect.
That you couldn't find 2 more different people, because Alex is a family man, and he's very much an optimist, and he believes in people and the good thing, and love triumphs all kind of guy. Yet we get along and we talk and we actually understand each other and help each other. And in that relationship which we build in season 1, basically in season 2 it escalates to a point because of what he's going through.
Having gone through what he goes through at the end of season 1 on Eros, essentially witnessing and experiencing this awful genocide where people are being experimented on, hundreds of thousands of people, that he feels partially responsible for. In the beginning of season 2, you really see him traumatized by that. And it's Captain Ahab-ish arc where the proto-molecules is whale, and he's really pushed to the brink of madness by the end of the season. And the more responsibility he takes on, and the more that this cascade of effects that he started, kind of enforces itself upon the solar system at large, his idealism is starting to chip away. He's losing himself.
The responsibility of taking on a beloved character is, I think it's so much pressure for any actor, and knowing that I looked a bit different and I wasn't as tall as her and like all that stuff, I was like, please like me. All I could do is do my best, right? God, it's really hard to say. I really like the last 3 episodes because Naomi's arc really comes to life. And there's a really cool scene involving some lasagna, and that was one of my favorites. And we actually ad-libbed the end of the scene, and it's made the take. So yeah, I just love that scene. I love it so much.
Part of it is that we're working on book 7 while we're adapting book 2. There's times I feel like we're doing, Christopher Nolan's Batman here and Batman 66 here, and we're just trying not to have them cross-pollinate.
I like space, but I can't get it out of my head that we're probably not going to have hyperdrives anytime soon. So that middle space where we are out in space, we're exploring the worlds in our solar system and looking at all that, but we're still basically using technology that's just a little better than what we have right now. That's a really fascinating place to me. And so movies like The Martian, which really are set in that space, or Interstellar, which is set in that space. I'm happy that we're getting more of those. I hope we continue to do so.
I feel like no one ever did the show about the 200 years of colonization of space before we got to hyperdrive and aliens and amazing technology. There was like a whole bunch of centuries of fumbling our way off the planet and figuring it out. And I feel like that's the most interesting part of the story, and the genre tends to just skip that and get right to the crazy stuff. And we're like, how do we get there? How do we get to Star Trek and Galactica and all those? It's a great story, and that's what this show is about.
The hotel room scene in 9, we wrote that. I was like, I don't want to watch.
Yeah,
that's terrible. That's horrible.
You're talking about Julie.
Oh yeah.
No, it was brutal. That
hard to watch.